Join Louisiana Right to Life in protecting the vulnerable as we share pro-life stories, insights, and news from the Pelican State. Welcome to the Pro-Life Pod.
Hey everybody, Ben Clapper here with Louisiana Right to Life. Welcome to the Pro-Life Pod, where we share all things pro-life in the state of Louisiana. We're glad all of you are with us, and today we're stepping into our legislative session preview. As you may know, you may not know, April 14th is the beginning of the Louisiana State Legislative Session, where Louisiana Right to Life, we are active in defending life at the state capitol. And we're going to just share with you a few of the things coming up in that state legislative session, in particular, 3 pro-life bills that have been introduced this session, tell you a little bit about those, and then maybe how you can help as well to get those passed. So here today to share with me a little bit about those bills is our policy director and attorney, Erica Inzina, and Sarah Zagorski, our communications director. Welcome y'all to our conversation today about our legislative session.
Hey, Ben. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, everyone.
Well, usually when it comes to legislative session, we got to trek to Baton Rouge all the time to be active in the legislative process. So, it's always a fun, exciting time of the year, but also, fast paced. And we have to be present, because oftentimes I share, if you're not present at the state legislature, you don't matter. Your issue doesn't matter. Your advocacy doesn't matter. So it's always important for us to be there. And really, since 1970, Louisiana Right to Life has been involved in some form or fashion at the state capitol, advocating for life, passing pro-life laws, defeating anti-life laws, also passing legislation that helps moms, promotes adoption, all sorts of things, protects embryos, all sorts of things we've done over the past, 50 plus years. So exciting time. Erica and Sarah, just curious, y'all's, your favorite and least favorite part about the legislative session getting started.
Well, it never gets old walking up to the Capitol. It's just a beautiful building, and the history, you can't escape the feeling of the history and the moment. And so I love that part. What about you, Sarah?
Well, I think the debate in committee is usually my favorite, to hear everyone's, and this is what makes it amazing to be an American, right, is we get to voice our opinion in so many different ways. But I think it's amazing that Louisiana Right to Life's passed, 71 pro-life laws since 2006. And that's something that I always think about amidst the debate, amidst the conversation, that we're always working to advance the call to protect the unborn and their mothers. So I think it's just a beautiful time, even when it's difficult.
That's right. And I think one of my favorite things is just that these legislators, so many of them are from, they're from normal communities in Louisiana. And most of them are not like super special people. They're all great people, don't get me wrong, but they're not like, they're just one of us. And
like,
so
they're
many
not like
of them,
political dynasty families,
right.
Yeah.
And so many of them care so much about the pro-life cause, and many of them have their own little stories or things that they care about, or why they brought them as it relates to the cause. So I always like seeing that and hearing their stories.
Yeah, I agree.
Very good. Well, let's share a little bit about what's going on this legislative session. How about we do that?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, well, we have 3 main pro-life bills that have been introduced this session that we've helped legislators to introduce them at the state capitol. It's one of our really honors as an organization to work with legislators to introduce legislation at the state capitol, using our organization's expertise and knowledge and longevity to do that and share on that. So it's always a blessing to work with legislators who care and want to get things done. The first one is the name is a good name, but it's certainly a mouthful, and it's the Justice for Victims of Abortion Drug Dealers Act. Again, Justice for Victims of Abortion Drug Dealers Act, and that's House Bill 575, and that's by State Representative Lauren Ventrella, and she's from the Greenwell Springs area outside of Baton Rouge, District 65. She's a state representative. In fact, interestingly, all of our bills this year have been introduced by state representatives, which is different than last year. I don't know if you all noticed this, but most of the flagship pro-life bills that were introduced last year were by state senators. So it's, never really, many times it's a mix. So it's very rarely one or the other. But this year it's all state reps that have introduced these bills. So that's Lauren Ventrella from the Greenwell Springs area. And this is all our bills are important. And this is really important because it's timely and it's trying to give Louisiana people who've been hurt by abortion some tools to take action to hold those accountable who are really pushing abortion on the state of Louisiana. So, Erica, I want you to tell us a little bit about what this bill does and why we started it, and start the conversation. Erica?
Okay, well, I'll start with a quick story. The way that you asked that question reminds me of a professor I had in law school. He was a brilliant legislation expert, and he would always fuss when people asked, like, what does this bill do? And he said, well, the only thing you can respond is it does what it says it does. And, that's not super helpful. But it does remind us that our legislation does have consequences and that the language that we use in legislation is incredibly important and can sometimes have unforeseen consequences. And so we have to be very careful in the way that we approach legislation. But I guess going against Professor LaMonica's saying, I would say that what the bill does, I call it the JVAD bill for short. What the Justice for Victims of Abortion Drug Dealers bill proposes to do is to expand existing law that already gives people who are harmed by abortion what we call in law a right of action or a cause of action. In normal people language, that's the ability to sue, right? The ability to sue the people that harm them. And in this case, it would be what we are terming and what a lot of other people have termed the abortion drug dealers. Whether those are drug dealers within our state who are selling abortion drugs on the street, or these out-of-state actors who are profiting off of this massive business plan that they have erected. This would give people harmed by those practices the ability to sue the people who harm them. It expands current law that already does that, but the current law is really limited. And it's also from 1997. So in 1997, of course, the only method of abortion was surgical abortion. And certainly this state, crossing of state line issue that we're seeing today was not an issue at all. And so the way that the bill worked in the past, or the way that the law worked in the past, isn't really working well for us now in this new playing field with out-of-state actors and telehealth, I have to say in quotes because it's not telehealth, but so-called telehealth abortions. The second thing that I would say it does is it puts these bad actors on notice that they will be held liable for the crimes that they are knowingly, and I guess I should say not crimes, but for the harms that they are knowingly and intentionally committing, recklessly, negligently, all of that. So it's a pretty interesting bill. It's kind of a whopper of a piece, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I think a lot of legal scholars in the pro-life community agree that at this point, now that we have seen Louisiana test the criminal law and the roadblocks that we've encountered with that, and getting the doctor that is shamelessly providing pills to Louisiana people, our inability to prosecute her for the crimes that she's committing are making our laws practically useless right now. And so we have to do more, and the more may be holding them civilly liable.
Yeah, Erica, thanks for sharing that. I think just taking this in bite-sized chunks. First, the name of the bill is called the Abortion Drug Dealer. It has that in the title. Some people may hear this podcast and they may say, Erica, that's like a sensational name. That's not true. But I think people need to realize that when we're talking about these abortion companies that are selling abortion drugs, this is not a doctor sitting down with a woman, going through her medical situation, doing some sort of, medical evaluation or something like that, and then prescribing this medication at the end of that process. That would be what a doctor does. But that's not what happens with these abortion pills. I mean, they are just sold online for money without any consultations, any medical screening, nothing. Right, Erica? Am I right
Oh,
on that?
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And I would say the worst of the offenders are the ones who are purporting to do it as doctors. They're purporting to provide health care, but they're not. And they're not because they're not licensed in Louisiana to do it. That would be like me going to New York and saying, well, I'm going to practice law here, and, you just can't stop me because I'm a lawyer in Louisiana, so I can do it in your state if I want to. Or, I guess more of an analogy would be me practicing law virtually in New York from Louisiana and saying, I can do it. I'm a lawyer in Louisiana, and so I can do that if I want to. And that's kind of what's happening with these doctors. But, it's not just doctors. I would say, in my opinion, those are the worst actors because the doctors owe a tremendous duty of care to certainly their patients, but to the public at large. Doctors have a lot of weight. They have a lot of power. And, of course, we always say one of their number one oaths is to do no harm. And that this flies directly in contravention of that oath of doing no harm. But to be clear, there are other actors who are just literally, in every sense of the word, that in every traditional sense of the way we think of drug dealers, they are literally dealing abortion drugs.
Absolutely.
No doctor license, not even an out-of-state doctor license that doesn't apply in Louisiana. They are getting their hands on abortion drugs, and they are dealing them through the
Absolutely.
internet.
Well, okay, so abortion drug dealers, so that's the situation with the drug dealers. Now, the other side of the bill is justice for victims, which is the start of the title, which, obviously the victims of abortion, the unborn baby, obviously, who no longer has a life to enjoy or a chance at life, the woman who is hurt by the abortion, hurt by the lies of the abortion facility, but it's also the victims even go beyond that, and this bill contemplates that there are other victims of illegal abortions in Louisiana, and they need to have the ability to hold people accountable for violating our state laws and causing damage to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And like a basic tenet of law is that if someone harms you, you should have the ability to seek recourse against them for the harm that they've caused you, right? And certainly we know that women are not the only victims of abortion. Of course, the unborn children that will never have a chance at life are victims, but families, the fathers of the unborn children who oftentimes have no say in what happens in the outcome of their child's life, the grandparents of the child. Sometimes, we see cases all the time where the grandparents are completely removed from the situation and have no participation in the process whatsoever, but then they are forever deprived of the joy and love of a grandchild, of that person that will never be on this earth again. So we do recognize that they are also victims. But the other thing too that you pointed out was the lies. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to see the woman who may seek an abortion for whatever reason as a victim. But we're here to say that she is a victim. And she's a victim because of the lies that have been told to her about how, especially in the abortion pill context, about how abortion pills are easy, how they are safe, how they are do-it-yourself. I've seen some abortion pills advertised as not much more than like a pill to return your menstrual cycle. If that's not a clever way of rephrasing what it actually is happening. I've not seen one more clever than that. But the lies, and then also, especially in the context of the medical providers making these pills available, the utter disregard for their duty to patients. And again, we wouldn't call them patients because we know they don't have that doctor-patient relationship in an official sense, but that duty to the people that you service to make sure that they understand what treatment you're providing them and what is going to be the after effect. And a hallmark of medicine is informed consent, making sure that the person that you're treating fully understands what they're about to go through and consents to it. And we find all the time that the women who take these pills are not told what's going to happen. They're not told what's going to happen to their body, to their baby, to themselves after, to their fertility in the future. And so, yeah, we absolutely view them as victims of the abortion industry, and maintain that they should be able to seek recourse as well.
Well, this is an important bill, and we look forward to it passing. And just to summarize again, HB 575, the Justice for Victims of Abortion Drug Dealers. Its goal is to expand the right of action to give more people the chance to file lawsuits to hold people accountable who are violating Louisiana's laws on abortion. So, Erica, thank you for that information, for sharing, and look forward to the session moving forward. And just to remind everybody, as we're talking today, that people can be involved in the legislative process by contacting their state legislators, coming to the state capitol, reaching out to state legislators, encouraging them to vote for the pro-life bills. And we'll have information available on our website on how to do that, or maybe in the description of this episode. So, okay, Erica, I'm going to come back to you in a second to get to our third bill. But Sarah, I'm going to bring you in now to share with everyone about our second bill, which is the Stop Coerced Abortion Act, and that is HB 425 by State Representative Josh Carlson. Now, Josh Carlson is from the Lafayette area. He's a state representative. He is a father of children. But he's a good pro-life state representative who is taking on this piece of legislation to help stop coerced abortion. Sarah, tell us about the bill, what it does, the ideas behind it. Sarah?
Sure. So currently in Louisiana, we already have a coerced abortion law on the books, but that prohibits coerced abortion under this. The standard is physical violence, so that a woman is forced by, it might be a weapon, it might be physical, the perpetrator's physical body, forcing her to have the abortion. However, what we've learned over the last 4 decades about the abortion decision, and what I've studied personally myself, is in understanding the abortion decision and the abortion-minded woman, is there's a lot of other things that is involved with that decision beforehand. And that's what the peer-reviewed studies have shown time and time again. So back in the early 2000s, some of the studies showed that 60%, that was the statistic we heard then, 60% of abortions involve coercion of some kind. And that has changed now to the most recent peer-reviewed studies showed that up to 70% of abortions are either unwanted abortions or coerced abortions. And in that dynamic, when we talk about coercion, we're talking about different kinds of coercion, not just physical violence. So that could be intimidation, that could be fear, that could be control of any kind, or it can be exploiting someone's need for housing or for food or for any kind of safety. And that's something we've seen recently through the grand jury indictment out of West Baton Rouge.
Yeah, so tell me about, Sarah, that maybe update everyone on what's going on with that indictment, and maybe especially how that story connects into this legislation and why it's so important and so timely.
Yeah, so, in February, The Advocate published a story highlighting some of the things that the district attorney there, Tony Clayton, said about that case specifically. He actually phrased that case that this young girl, who was a minor at the time, who was propelled or coerced by her mother to take abortion pills against her will. This was a wanted child that she wanted to have. That he termed it forced abortion. And then later on in his interview with them, he said that she was given an ultimatum, by her mother, who was a perpetrator in her scenario, to have this abortion. And that is why she did indeed do that. So that's an example of exploiting someone's need by giving someone an ultimatum to have an abortion, saying, essentially, you're not going to have this in order, if you don't take these abortion pills right now, you are going to either not have housing, not have a car, whatever it might be. And he didn't list specifically what it was, but she was giving an ultimatum. Also, in that case, we see too that as you were saying earlier, Erica, that a lot of these women are in cycles of violence already, that they're already experiencing under dire duress. And that's what we know about abortion-minded women, that they're often women who are economically poor. They're women who are experiencing abuse of different kinds. And unfortunately, the abortion pill makes this legislation, the coerced abortion legislation, even more important because it's so easy to access these drugs. You can access them through going on Snapchat or wherever you're going. They're selling them on the street. Women can get a hold of them quickly, not just women, but parents and partners and people that are intimately involved with the young girl who's pregnant, which makes it very dangerous for Louisiana women and girls.
Which is, of course, what happened in West Baton Rouge.
Yes.
And the mom was able to obtain them online.
Yes. And so what we see there is an example of the need for this legislation, which will at least at minimum say that any tactics of control, whether that's intimidation or ultimatums or blackmail or harassment, those kind of tactics will be prohibited in trying to coerce a young woman to have an abortion. And this is something that's very common ground for Louisianians. And it's also something that, most people that are involved with women's rights and domestic violence circles know that the patterns of abuse, these are indicators, these are signs of patterns of abuse that persuades someone against their will to have an abortion. So this isn't something anyone should disagree upon. We should never want to coerce a woman in any kind of capacity to do something, especially have an abortion against her will.
Yeah,
So Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot, but that I think is so disappointed, to your point just a second ago, this is something that we should all be able to get behind. Like this should not be a controversial topic right here. But the way that we have seen, when we saw the prosecutor and the state attorney general, Liz Murrell, call this a forced abortion or a coerced abortion, it was so disappointing to see people on the other side say, oh, well, if it had been a coerced abortion, why was she not charged with coerced abortion? And that to me is so myopic. It's
and what's really
there's coercion under the law, which is what, we are here to rectify, to make sure that the law recognizes and properly punishes coercion. But then, coercion can be so much more than that. And the law cannot even always possibly fully explain every possible situation, right? But I think any person out there would agree this is coercion.
Right. Well, and what's unfortunate is all the academic literature on this topic has said for many, many decades that abuse like this escalates over time, right? So the same with the abortion decision. So tactics of fear and intimidation increase over time in a woman's life, affecting her mental health and those sort of things. And a woman who's coerced into an abortion decision, like by far and large, always suffers more than those who are not. So, if you look at the academic literature on this, you look at abuse on a scale, you'll see that the woman pressured to have an abortion, that's something that's very common in our society today. And that's been known for many, many years. So like you said, it's completely common ground for Louisianians. It's completely common ground for hopefully everyone in the state to get behind this. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how that shakes out at the legislature.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who's going to come oppose this legislation. Basically, should her parents be able to threaten to kick her out of the house if she doesn't have an abortion? No, absolutely not. And that should be illegal in the state of Louisiana. And this legislation is going to fix that. And, appreciate Representative Josh Carlson for taking the leadership to file this bill and to do this. And, Sarah, I think we want to invite anyone who has, a story of coerced abortion in their past, or they know someone who has been coerced or intimidated into an abortion, to come forward, talk to you, Sarah, and share their story with you. And maybe you can come testify at the state capitol, because we know the stories are out there. Obviously, it's difficult for someone to share that story, and we totally understand if someone's not in the place where that's a good idea for them. But, we know it's happened, and the stories need to get out to show people that this is a reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if the stories aren't being told, then it just looks like us making up things. And we've been accused of that before. Like, oh, y'all are just making this up. This doesn't really happen. When we know it happens, but we can't be the ones to tell that story. It has to be told by the person who lived through it and can really speak to it. So, to echo your point, I think stories are so powerful and so important for our state representatives and senators to be able to hear in order to make their decision, rather than just relying on testimony from the advocates on either side.
Right. And I think that, like you said earlier about the previous legislation, is that this gives an opportunity for more victims to come forward and talk about their stories and hopefully receive healing from their stories and things like that. And one thing I want to say too about the young girl out of West Baton Rouge is obviously it was very brave of her to have gone this far in the process with this, because victims just overall statistically don't speak up when they're violated in a way. And this was a huge violation that she went through, a huge trauma, the loss of her baby, a wanted baby that she lost and will have to live with for the remainder of her life. So I know women are
At the hands of
suffering
her
just like,
mother, at the hands of her own mom.
yes. Yes. So
Yeah.
abortion puts people in precarious situations with people they love every single day. And we know that's happening in Louisiana. And we know that there are a lot of women that are suffering this way. So hopefully this legislation will at least put a stop to some of that happening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing a little bit about that legislation. And again, people that everyone, that's HB 425. Reach out to your legislators, encourage them to vote yes and support that legislation once the legislative session gets up and rolling. Okay, we've covered two pieces of legislation for this session. The third piece of legislation is House Bill 478. We're calling that the 2025 Signs of Hope Act. There was a 2011 Signs of Hope Act way back in the day, authored by Representative Frank Hoffman of Monroe, great state representative. He's retired now. This bill, the 2025 version, is authored by Representative Dodie Horton. She's from the Bossier Parish area in Louisiana. So we went from Baton Rouge area to Lafayette area. Now we're going up to the North Louisiana, Bossier City area. Representative Horton is another strong pro-life legislator. She's just a great advocate, and we're really excited about her leading this legislation forward. So, Erica, maybe tell me the basics of this bill. What is the Signs of Hope Act? What does it do? And what do you think, Erica?
Well, Ben, as Professor LaMonica would say, it does what it says it does and nothing more. No, I'm kidding. No, the Signs of, I love that name too, by the way, the Signs of Hope. It reminds me of those like memes or signs or whatever that like, this is your sign not to drive drunk, or this is your sign to do whatever. And so I love that. And so in that same way, these signs, what we propose to do is to mandate that state high school health clinics and college health clinics have a sign posted within the clinic that directs young women who are pregnant and in need of pregnancy resources to be able to go online to the state-funded LDH website that directs them to a whole host of resources for pregnant women. And yeah, I love the idea that just sometimes you need a sign. You know, sometimes you just need a sign that someone is aware, that someone is there for you. And that may be literally the only sign that someone sees that helps them to understand that abortion is not their only option.
That's right, Erica. The sign, for everyone, it's going to be so simple according to the way the bill is now. We'll see how it ends up in the process. But the sign would say pregnant, help is available for you and your baby. And then it would have the website of the Department of Health that has pregnancy info. So, information such as where a woman can go to find resources like medical care, pregnancy tests, counseling, maternity supplies, baby supplies, where and how to see a doctor, assistance from state health, assistance from the state health, like the LA Moms program, and there's a number of other ones that public assistance to mothers. So right there on that sign, if a woman finds herself in a high school clinic or a college school clinic, she'd see that sign and say, wow, well, I'll go to that website and then I can learn about what is offered in the state of Louisiana to help mothers. Because the great thing is Louisiana has a lot of great resources, both public through the state and through private charities and programs that offer a lot of resources to mothers in need, whether they're in need or not, really. And that's resources before the baby's born, after the baby's born. So there's just a lot out there. Oftentimes we talk about that the challenge is just getting the information to people so that they can make themselves available of all of these resources. And that's the goal of this legislation, to just get information to, in this case, young people who don't know what to do, who maybe don't know that resources are available and out there. So it's like really simple and easy. That's the goal of this bill. What are some of any resources that y'all can think of that the state would make available on that website that can be helpful to a young woman who's pregnant or even parenting a child?
I think information about the adoption option obviously is a huge thing that people need to be aware of. That in Louisiana we have different types of adoption, and modern adoption looks very different than it did in the past. And 90% of adoptions today involve some kind of openness in the adoption decision. And I think a lot of people that might feel that abortion is their only choice, if they begin to study and learn about adoption, especially young people, they will be encouraged to know that they can, if they choose to, have a relationship with their child later on in life. And I think that's something that more people need to know, because adoption is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we know, and we are always singing the praises of our many wonderful pregnancy resource centers throughout Louisiana. Mm-hmm. But, there are also state-funded and federally funded health clinics that are very well run and more than capable, and in some cases, more regulated than some other types of health clinics. So on the level of quality care, it's a high quality of care, but it's available to people who may not have the means to go to an OBGYN under their own insurance, maybe because they don't have insurance, or for many other reasons. So I think those would be some resources that should be on there. All of the access to state and federally funded healthcare clinics, and also information about the rights that a pregnant student has. We want students to know that they do have rights and they cannot be discriminated against. It is a constitutional violation for them to be discriminated against because of their pregnancy situation. And so, I think a lot of times maybe girls or college students may drop out of school because they weren't told otherwise. They weren't told that there is a path forward, in being able to complete their schoolwork while going through the pregnancy and having the baby and parenting, if that's what they choose to do too. So that's something else that needs to be out there.
Yeah, those are some great resources, and I know there'll be even more. And the Department of Health already has those resources on the state's Department of Health website that a woman can access and learn about. So again, this bill is real easy. It's dealing with public institutions, and there's all kinds of other information that those health clinics make available. And so this is just going to be providing that information and ensuring and hoping that this information is going to help improve pregnancy outcomes in the state of Louisiana by connecting women to the resources that are available to them. So again, I would say this one is another no-brainer that people should be able to unite on, because we probably need these signs in a lot more places other than just school health clinics, but that's all this bill deals with. So we'll see. If this succeeds, we'll see where else the signs, because we just want everyone to know of the resources that are available to women in the state of Louisiana. So any other thoughts on those that piece of legislation, either Erica or Sarah, or anything else we've covered today?
No, it'll be a busy and interesting session. I'm excited for it to get started, see how things shake out.
Absolutely. Well, in addition to encouraging and pushing those bills forward, we're going to continue to monitor other legislation that comes up in the state legislative session. Bills that may expand abortion, we're going to fight against those. Bills that may endanger the rights that our state gives to human embryos, we're going to fight against those pieces of legislation as well, because we want to ensure that embryos are protected under the laws of the state of Louisiana. We're also going to be encouraging the state to continue to fund pregnancy help resources. the legislation that was passed last year by State Senator Katrina Jackson that every year is going to need funding from the state. So we're going to continue to encourage the state to place that in the state's budget. Just really important that the state of Louisiana puts its money where its mouth is, in a sense, to ensure that we are helping mothers and babies. So everybody, we also have Pro-Life Day at the Capitol, and that's May 14th. So Sarah or Erica, do y'all want to tell us what we can do and what people can expect on that day?
So usually on Pro Life Day at the Capitol, we have many of the pregnancy centers in the state come and set up in the rotunda where they kind of showcase what their services are to women in Louisiana, and also pro life citizens have an opportunity to come and lobby their legislators, which is a really important part of the process because they need to see that pro life people from all over the state are coming to advocate for the unborn and for their mothers and are very vocal about this, and that when they see that support, it encourages them to keep doing what they've been doing and to try harder, try better, try differently, whatever it might be, to pass pro-life legislation and also to stop the pro-abortion legislation at the state capitol. So that's May 14th. Also, we usually have a lunch afterwards. So we're looking forward to seeing a bunch of our pro-life friends and also the pregnancy centers that come and show us all the services that they're offering.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to check that out on our website, prolifelouisiana.org. Just probably Google Louisiana Pro-Life Day at the Capitol. You can find that. So check out that. People can be involved and engage on that as well. We put out action alerts from time to time on our website or social media or through email, where we will encourage people to contact their state legislators. So be sure, come to our website, join our email distribution list. You can stay in touch and engage. So even if you never come to the Capitol, we still want your state legislators to hear from you, to share with them about pro-life issues. Connected somewhat, but a little different. Our Pro-Life Summit is going to be Saturday, May 31st in Baton Rouge. So we encourage people, Google Louisiana Right to Life Pro-Life Summit, or we'll put the link in the description where you can come learn and be active and be educated and really be activated in terms of being a engaging pro-life citizen. So check that out. Everybody come and be a part of that. Important things. Sarah, Erica, anything else that we have that you want to share or mention?
I just want to say that for a Pro-Life Day at the Capitol, I think this would be a great opportunity for high school pro-life clubs or college pro-life clubs to come in and kind of like easily get their way into the Capitol. I think it's so intimidating to walk into the Capitol. You know, a fun fact, I didn't really know. I think intuitively I knew that anybody can go to the Capitol. You know, we have that right as part of the legislative system, you know, but there just feels like a barrier to entry, but you really just can go. But, you know, certainly a Pro-Life Day at the Capitol would be a great time to come where you know you're going to have people that you can at least stand with, you know, that can guide you around the Capitol and tell you where to go and where to sit and what, you know, where to throw away your coffee before you walk in and all of that stuff. So I think it's a great opportunity for students and young people who may want to get more involved in activism to softly learn the ropes of lobbying at the Capitol.
That's a great point. Very good. Well, everyone, thanks so much for listening today. Encourage everyone across all podcast platforms or on YouTube. Make sure you like and share, subscribe, whatever you got to do. Stay in touch, engaged as we continue. We're going to be putting out hopefully regular social media updates on what's happening at the state capitol. So stay in tune with that, share that, and just be a part of our effort, because we are there advocating on behalf of the unborn child, their mother, and all innocent human life. And we really need everyone to amplify that voice. And you can do that both at home and in Baton Rouge at the state capitol. So Erica, Sarah, thanks so much for joining me today to talk about this, and for your hard work to move these important principles and policies forward. So thank you all.